Thanks a lot for joining us again on TVC Breakfast. Well, as the world moves towards a sustainable future, Nigeria, which is Africa's largest economy, is well positioned to embrace renewable energy and decarbonization. With its abundant natural resources and increasing energy demands, Nigeria has great potential to utilize renewable energy sources and reduce its carbon footprint. Nigeria's commitment to decarbonization and the adoption of electric vehicles is evident. Although challenges remain, the opportunities for sustainable growth, job creation, and environmental preservation present a strong case for continued investment in renewable energy. By focusing on renewable energy and embracing electric vehicles, Nigeria can lower its carbon emissions, stimulate economic growth, and become a leader in Africa's transition to sustainable energy. And that's what we want to discuss now. Let's bring in first via Zoom from the United Kingdom, Reader in Electrical and Electronics Engineering from the King's College London, Professor Yiwa Hu. He has been joined by Olushola Bamishle, a doctor, a lecturer in energy and sustainability at the University of Dundee, Scotland. Thanks a lot, Prof. and Dr. Bamishle, for joining us at this time on TVC Breakfast. Dr. Bamishle, let's have you first, especially in the light of which you must have been following. Nigeria has recorded a concerning number, high spate of grid collapses, for the past few weeks, and we're still experiencing the irregular power supply. Help us understand what you make of this and how this intervention, so to speak, with EVs and decarbonization, how much of a difference this would make if it is well implemented in the country.
Good morning, Kemi. Thank you very much for having me this morning. With the recent grid collapse in Nigeria, it's obvious grid collapse only happens just because of two things. Either the supply is more than the demand or the demand is more than the supply. In the case of Nigeria, it's because the demand is actually more than the supply. And one of the ways, or one of the maybe easiest way actually to approach this is to kill two birds with one stone, like we popularly say back in Nigeria. And this is by just deploying renewable energy resources. Nigeria is positioned well to actually maximize solar energy its solar energy potential with the use of solar PV. And it's important that the government actually rise to the occasion and the government start making policies that would actually encourage its citizens to go in this direction. I'll just give a very good example. Germany is one of the biggest countries in terms of solar PV utilization. And what they did many years ago was simple. They put in a policy called feed-in tariff, which means that the citizens can install solar PV systems independently and then generate electricity, send it to the grid, and then they buy it at a more expensive rate than the amount that the citizens actually buy electricity from the grid. This encouraged the widespread of solar PV in the country, and that is why Germany is where it is today.
Interesting. I would still like to stay with you, Dr. Bamishle, before we go to Professor Hu. In 2020, you published a research work on the approach for sustainable energy planning towards 100% electrification of Nigeria by 2030. So the question is, do you think Nigeria can achieve full electrification by 2030, really? Very quickly.
Thank you very much for that question. This is actually like something that it's a very tough ask at this stage. We're almost in 2025 already. If you read that research work, which we actually carried out in 2019, but got published in 2020, then I was still in China. One of the things we did was to estimate that Nigeria would need actually to generate 200 terawatt hour of electricity every year to meet actually the needs of all the citizens. I was reading recently, currently Nigeria is still not generating up to 80 terawatt hour of electricity. And just thinking about the whole logistics, the transmission system, the distribution system, I don't know if you know about this, but Nigeria actually has capacity of over 11,000 megawatt. I think something close to 15 or 16 megawatt. But Nigeria only uses, or they only use just 4 megawatt out of this capacity. And it's because of the state of the power system. So we need to actually improve the power system. And I don't want to be the prophet of doom, but the truth is, I think we're far off the target by 2030. And I think we would need to actually activate a China mode, which is more or less of like achieving things that is meant to take 10 years within maybe like 3-4 years.
Associate Professor Hu. So, speaking to this concept of decarbonization and EV generally, help us better understand what Nigeria stands to gain, especially with the prospects of artificial intelligence.
Okay, thanks for having me. So, and we say in a country for the future technology, I think EV and the artificial intelligence are quite important because AI relies on energy. Any computing that's artificial intelligence, larger language model, and consume energy heavily. So every country they develop their AI target in the future that need a huge infrastructure on renewable power generation. And for electric vehicle, and that electric vehicle is not a vehicle, but also a mobile battery system. So if a country has a lot of electric vehicles that can give backup for the energy system. For example, I can give a quick example. It's about 3 years ago, and a heavy rain happened in a China big city, and the power supply infrastructure is blacked out. But they rely on electric vehicles to give temporary power supply for citizens that can save time for the rescue people to repair the whole infrastructure. So electric vehicle, not only an electric vehicle. So it can be, energy back tank, mobile energy back tank. So that is many expertise, can help the whole city.
All right, Professor Hu, I will definitely come back to you. I would like to go to Dr. Olushola Bamishile. With your research experience, what do you think? When actually do you think Nigeria can fully achieve a decarbonized power system that provides 100% electrification? Do you think that's a tall order, or it's something that we can see in the nearest future?
The truth is actually a tall order. So there is an aspect of Nigeria has two problems. The first part is achieving 100% electrification, and then we can now talk about like full decarbonization of the power system. Just to put this in perspective, countries like US, UK, China, like the top countries of the world, they have 100% electrification nowadays, but they still have not been able to achieve full decarbonization of their power system. In the recent COP in Azerbaijan, the Prime Minister of the UK actually made a pledge, which some people still feel is quite lousy, that the country will achieve over 80% decarbonization of its power system by 2030. So that kind of shows you that even in the advanced country, achieving full decarbonization, it's actually something that is really hard to come by. So most countries are setting targets of 2050, 2060, and 2070. I'll just answer the question in two folds. Now, I would say that Nigeria can achieve full electrification if we start working on it, if we can start taking actions, if we prioritize it in everything we do. I would say that within the next 10, 15 years, it's definitely possible to achieve full electrification. But the full decarbonization, with my research experience, I would say maybe it will take us the next 20, 30, 40 years before we can get there.
Right. And coming back to Professor Hu, well, as the world, gradually explores the issue of, cutting down greenhouse emissions, another concept of this time around peer-to-peer energy sharing is also, gaining prominence, so to speak. What do you make of it, and how much difference do you think this could bring in this advocacy?
Okay, thanks. Peer-to-peer energy trading is a very popular right now. Peer-to-peer trading means, in a home, you install solar energy, any storage electric vehicles, you have extra energy you can sell to your neighbors. Or in a building, install solar panels, you can sell to another buildings. So that can make, more flexible, in the energy market. So nowadays, we have to buy expensive energy from the national grid. So that make people's energy bill very high, even in the UK. So it's very high. So how can we mitigate the energy bill crisis even in developed country? So peer-to-peer energy trading is a good solution. It do not rely on the national grid. So they just to sell energy to their neighbors to decrease their home's energy bill. And more especially, that's also quite safe for the future, when blackout happened. So you can buy your electricity from your neighbors, energy storage. So that can give extra security for your home's power supply. So, and in the future, the peer-to-peer energy trading can popularize to many places all around the world. Not only in developed country, but in developing country also can be a huge market potential.
Interesting. So, considering the huge solar energy power potential in Nigeria and Africa, it's quite something that we've been adopting, but then it's still considered to be very, very expensive for so many households to get, to acquire solar panels, let alone getting the inverters and all of that. So, how do you think? Why do we need to develop solar farm management system as we speak?
Yeah, solar energy, solar panels can be used for 25 years, the manufacturers promised. But in the 25 years, many, storms, heavy rains, snows, and dusting problems. If we do not, regular maintenance, it can, cannot run for 25 years. And especially for the efficiency of the solar farm. So if you maintenance, regularly, it can explore maximum its efficiency all the time. If we do not maintenance it, it will lose its maximum power generation potential. So especially for manpower-rich country, so it deserves us, to do solar panel management to make our initial capital investment, can be paid back quickly.
Right. Coming back to Dr. Bamishile now, well, back home, it's not just CNG that, the government is introducing. Electric vehicles are also being explored. In Ogun State now, electric bikes, have been launched by the state's government. Is this a step in the right direction?
Thank you very much for the question once again. I'll just maybe say one or two things about some of the things that Professor Hu already touched on. Now, Nigeria has so much potential in terms of energy trading, in terms of energy market and renewable energy, that we're not even tapping it at all. In fact, renewable energy can literally take Nigeria out of poverty if we actually maximize it very well. A very good example is now, what's it called? Developers, they can actually go into the phase of actually creating a decentralized grid system for like a development. So they don't need to rely on the government's power grid, or what we call the national grid, for them to actually produce electricity for people that are actually building on that development, which is something that everybody, I mean, even including yourself, if you are offered a place where you get 24 hours or 24/7 electricity supply in Nigeria, you want to live there. So these are some of the little things we're actually not tapping into. And like Professor Wu said earlier on, EVs are very good. I mean, I'm talking as somebody that used electric vehicle, that drove it for a couple of years or a couple of months in China before I moved from that country. EVs are very good. In fact, it gives, when you study a bit about resilience in power systems, sometimes when you're recovering a power system, you actually use EV because you need power to actually start up your system. Now, putting that in the perspective of Ogun State, I can say that deploying bike is actually a conundrum because on the one side, we are going towards decarbonization, but on the other side, do we have enough electricity to actually charge these bikes? Now, what are we going to resort to? I mean, as somebody that grew up in Nigeria and I'm still very familiar, I keep myself up to date with things happening back home. What typically happens in this situation is people start turning on their generators, the mobile generating set and stuff, and start actually charging their electric bikes with that. Now, that would definitely affect the battery. It would affect the specification of the charging, as you have seen many times, like the havoc that this small generating set has done on different devices. No. So what this would end up doing is it would actually affect these bikes, and the battery would not last as long as they are meant to last. That's right. And within the next few years, we may end up actually having the challenge of like, are these bikes actually worth the investment? What I would have thought is that the government should, alongside the deployment of these electric bikes, should also make efforts to actually improve the power supply, or actually build dedicated charging stations for these bikes, such that the moment you purchase the bike, you are very sure that you would always have a place to charge. Let me just give you a final example.
Right, we've run out of time. If you could just, make it brief, under 10 seconds.
Yeah, so what I wanted to say is that in China, electric vehicles is everywhere. And it's because everywhere you are in China, especially in the city I state, when you open your app, you can actually find a walking charging station within 5 kilometers to you.
All right. We hope we get, another time to engage further with you both. Thanking you very much for your contributions, despite the time constraints. Reader in Electrical and Electronics Engineering from the King's College London. You are who? Thank you very much. And, of course, Olushola, thanks a lot again.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.